Wow, it is funny to be up here again, behind a beautiful plexi wall. My name is Herwig Baumgartner, and I'm the Applied Studies Coordinator here at SCI-Arc, and it's my pleasure to introduce Ben Caldwell and welcome him to SCI-Arc. Ben is an LA-based artist, arts educator, and independent filmmaker, and we are very excited that Ben will be teaching a workshop to our students this week with the title Emancipating the Image. Ben was born in New Mexico and studied photography at the Phoenix College in Arizona before studying filmmaking at UCLA, where he received his MFA in 1976. He studied film alongside Charles Burnett, Julie Dash, Billy Woodbury, as part of a group of young artists who were to change the African-American independent filmmaking scene, a cultural phenomenon sometimes called the LA Rebellion. Ben contributed largely to the LA Rebellion movement, creating films that focused on Black culture in Los Angeles. The films and shorts Ben has produced, written, directed, are focused on social issues that directly affect Black communities. I can take my mask off, I guess, right? His films include Medea in 1973, when he was still a student, I and I, an African allegory in 1979, Water Ritual 1, an urban rite of purification in 1979, Gidget Meets Hondo in 1980, Festival of Masks in 1982, The Snake in My Bed in 1995, Eyewitness, Reflections of Malcolm X and OAAU, 2006, I Built the Tower in 2006, Lemire Park, the Sankoff Projects in 2007, and La Buena Vida in 2008. Ben taught for many years at CalArts and became a major force in the Community Arts Partnership. In 1984, he founded Chaos Network, a community arts center that provided training in digital arts and multimedia. Chaos is located at the heart of Lemire Park, a historic center for the LA jazz scene, and now hosting a diverse multimedia art scene. Chaos is an organization that provides hand-on training in video production, animation, website development, and so on to South Central and intercity youth. Ben has many fascinating projects still up his sleeves, and some of these future works include creating autonomous cars, where passengers will be able to experience movies in a way that will revolutionize the way audiences consume media. Ben is also working on repurposing old phone booths so people can Skype with one another, and include these as part of the metro line expansion that will go through South Los Angeles, a predominantly Black LA neighborhood. We are really excited and very grateful that Ben will spend the next few days working with our students. And if you're not already signed up, it's not too late. Please let Andrea or Melanie know right after this lecture. And the workshop starts tomorrow, and I hope that you can all participate. So without further ado, I want to welcome Ben Caldwell to SCI-Arc.
Good morning, or good noon, right? I'm going to just start this out really by what I do the best is filmmaking, and this is a piece that was done, I think this is 2016, 17, and it'll give you an overview of Los Angeles, and it'll contextualize why I started working in urban design.
To many outsiders, culture in Los Angeles is something that begins and ends with the movies. But the city has always been home to radical voices and new ideas that have stirred things up in art, in literature, in architecture, and urban life. In recent years, the city's artistic profile has grown bigger and brighter with new cultural institutions, new approaches to art, and new ways of thinking about the landscape. Join me as we hit some of the city's most important cultural nerve centers. I'm Carolina Miranda, culture writer for the Los Angeles Times, and this is Artbound.
Los Angeles is an infinitely inspiring city. It feels like you can just explore forever.
Amazing people coming from all over the world with a craft.
I am a maker, and as a maker, I'm a better designer.
For me, the really exciting art happens at the boundary where the real gives up to the ideal.
Next, on Artbound. Los Angeles is a chilled-out orange grove that became a major movie capital and then a manufacturing center. Now it's changing again, giving up the freeways and the sprawl in favor of a new kind of urbanism. Los Angeles is remaking itself. New train lines connect life. Architecture critic Christopher Hawthorne takes us into this new panorama, a place he calls the Third LA.
What is the third Los Angeles? Essentially, it's a shorthand, a way of describing the new civic identity that Los Angeles is working and often struggling to establish. The city and region are taking real, measurable, and often controversial steps to move past the building blocks of post-war LA, including the private car, the freeway, the single-family house, and the lawn. It no longer dreams of infinite expansion the way it long did, of growing its way out of every problem. It's increasingly offering residents a variety of ways to move around the city, from car share and bike share to new transit lines. But it's too easy to say simply that Los Angeles is moving into a new phase of civic identity from A to B. That idea overlooks one important fact. Many of the elements we're now working to add or improve, mass transit, pedestrian culture, experimental multifamily architecture, ambitious civic buildings, Los Angeles actually produced in remarkable quantities at the end of the 19th and the start of the 20th centuries. In our civic DNA is something before the car, before the freeway, before the concrete LA River and the lawn and the smog. As I see it, that period is the first Los Angeles, from the 1880s when modern LA is really born through World War II. And then the second Los Angeles, the LA that produced all those familiar stereotypes about cars and a shrunken civic realm, the second LA runs roughly through the year 2000. At the heart of the third LA concept is the idea that the city is no longer pushing out at the edges, sprawling and expanding by building new subdivisions and gobbling up empty land, but a city folding back on itself, looking to develop more intensely parts of the city it developed lightly before in its race to grow at the periphery. This emerging city that we're seeing now, this city rediscovering its public spaces, moving past car culture and the single-family house, anxious about displacement and economic inequality, and in many ways having to relearn the art of sharing the city rather than chopping it up into tens of thousands of private residential enclaves. This emerging city is best understood as the third Los Angeles. For much of the 19th and 20th centuries, LA culture, like most of American culture, was obsessed with a kind of westward expansion. And the conventional wisdom was the way to understand the city, the way to read Los Angeles, was to move from east to west, to start downtown near the river and move toward the edge, toward the beach. And that meant Venice and Santa Monica were kind of the leading edge, the last frontier of cultural experimentation in Los Angeles. If you were a young architect or a young artist in the 1970s or 1980s, the chances are good that you would set up shop near here, near the beach, near that edge. And there was really a sense that LA culture was informed by that idea of experimentation at this western edge. But now, thanks to rising rents and gentrification, this is no longer that kind of city. Venice is not the place where young architects and artists are setting up shop. They're doing so much further east in more affordable parts of the city. And that means that the cultural center of gravity in Los Angeles is moving quite dramatically from west to east. Los Angeles is instead a city that is folding back or doubling back on itself. Instead of looking for new, fresh territory, new edges to expand toward, it's looking instead to redevelop areas of the city that it ignored in many ways in its rush to the western edge.
Go look on the ocean front. All you see is a horizon of water and sky. Man, that's inspiring. That's totally inspiring. Fresh air is totally inspiring. Abbott Kinney wanted to develop and make money. He went to, good schools and studied classics and studied in Europe. He had been in Venice, he had been in Egypt, he had studied in Heidelberg, Turkey. He wanted to replicate the beauty of the architecture that he had seen around the world. So he would dig canals and then have waterways instead of streets. There was a series of major and minor catastrophes. They put all the money into the pier in Windward Avenue and a great storm destroyed it. The land values just had plummeted from the time of the 20s, the 30s, the wartime.
It wasn't an attractive area necessarily for people to reside in. But in the 40s, inexpensive housing meant that artists could live and work very inexpensively. Jazz musicians, poets, writers.
Venice was a place where artists came in the 50s and 60s because you could get a big warehouse space for next to nothing, and you could make big art. Then you could surf. It was really an incredibly low-cost place to be a very creative person.
It used to be called Where the Debris Meets the Sea. It was surrounded by oil derricks and alcoholics and bums and mentally ill people. So it really was only that it was cheap. Larry Bell said he was able to rent 3,000 square feet of space on Marine, which is 2 blocks from the beach, for $75 a month.
My first place was $64. Now you can't even stay one night in Venice for $64. Yeah, $64 a month.
I remember the first day I was here, I woke up in the morning and I looked out the window. It was just a beautiful morning. And there was a dead body just laying there in the middle of the vacant lot with a couple of detectives kind of smoking a cigarette and walking around it, cracking jokes and everything like that. That was my first morning in Venice. And I'm not trying to make a crime scene out of Venice, but it literally was. And the only people that were crazy enough to really move into the area were artists. People like Billy Al Bankston, Ed Moses, Larry Bell, Bob Graham. The rest of the neighborhood was hookers and drug dealers and wackos, crazies, and the Crips and the Bloods. Basically, Venice was a very different place than it is now. Young artists could actually exist down here.
Ironically, some of those artists wound up becoming themselves property owners, and their very presence made Venice an attractive place. That group was then bringing in architects who were creating interesting-looking houses, and they were all making Venice a fun, interesting place, but it built on itself, and then you had stockbrokers, and then now tech people coming in, all chasing that bohemianism of Venice, which of course is killed by that process. So the golden goose for Venice, which was its bohemianism, has been destroyed, you see what I mean?
I came to Venice when I was about 7 years old. I was living with my mother and father in L.A., and when my mother and father got a divorce, the first thing I remember is that there was a beach down there. That's what we wanted to do, go down there and jump in the water and feel the sand. And my grandfather Alphonse Joseph Henry, they call him AJ. He was the first black cement contractor here in Venice. So he found a lot of work. And remember now, at this time, the canals are being built. There's still a lot of vacant houses. Now we're into 2016. We have all these big mansions going up. Well, my problem with that is that they're tearing down perfectly good houses, building these mansions. And one of the first things they do is put up an illegal fence or tall bushes and things. So you never get a chance to really see them. I like to know my neighbors. I know most of them on this block here, but since gentrification is here, you don't get a chance to know them. And there still are a few pioneer families left here, but not very many. Not very many.
There wasn't even a place to get a hamburger. There was nothing down here. If you walk down Market Street to the boardwalk and look towards Santa Monica and saw 20 people all the way, that would be a big day. Nobody came down here. It was empty. We're now in front of 77 Market Street. And I used to own number 76 Market Street. Snapchat started acquiring all the property around here, and the rent got too high. I think they have all of the buildings on this street. I don't know how it's going to play out, but if it carries on as it has been going, you know, a little house like this or a little house like this built in the 30s will be worth $25 million for a little shack like that, you know?
Fortunately, Los Angeles has lots of underdeveloped neighborhoods. Everybody doesn't have to live in the same 10 blocks, whether it's in Venice or Atwater. Wherever the artists go, businesses will follow and boutiques will follow, and artists lead the way and everybody else follows. That's the way it is traditionally.
Los Angeles has always been known as a city of neighborhoods, and one of the neighborhoods with the strongest cultural and political identity has long been Leimert Park. Leimert Park Plaza and the neighborhood surrounding it was laid out mostly by the Olmsted brothers, sons of the Central Park designer, in the 1920s. It was also a neighborhood that was protected by racial covenants, and it wasn't until after the Watts riots of 1965 and accelerating white flight that the neighborhood became what we know it as today, which is a real center of African-American culture, politics, and art. And now, as the neighborhood awaits the arrival of the Crenshaw Line light rail route, which brings with it both optimism and hopes about new investment and development, and also anxieties about gentrification and displacement, the question is whether Leimert Park can maintain that reputation as the heart, the center of African-American culture in Los Angeles and the region.
Good morning. We're going to get started. So we'll go now to what we call good of the house. That's where anyone who has something that they feel that the community should be aware of has the opportunity to let us know.
We were contacted last week by BK Botosh's real estate agent that we now have the opportunity to get more properties, you know, and actually have community ownership with more properties.
We should have all the property on the left and that's what I thought we were doing, is accumulating all the property for us African Americans first before we started letting everybody roll in with all the money. Now the people can see the avalanche coming, and they see the big ball rolling, and they see it's going to be a detriment if they don't get involved. So everybody's getting serious now. This has been going on for 30 years since I've been here, since I walked into this park in 1987. We've been trying to save this for African Americans. So this is nothing new. So it's not like it's been a secret. It ain't no secret. I mean, we've been working on this for a long time.
Okay,
Now we have
talking about listening to
it's so offensive.
I just had a quick question. Please. And I just had a quick question. I didn't grow up in Leimert, but I grew up in Compton.
The Leimert Park Metro line will be up and running by the year 2020. 2020 vision is something that grew out of our Monday morning meetings, and it was a way for us to have a plan on what this neighborhood would look like when our neighbors from all over the world come up out of the metro stop. I think it's a quite unique gathering of people, and it's a lot of the 60s children that are retired out that are the main base of the people who are doing the planning, and it's also very much like a dream team because each of them know exactly what issues need to take place.
Yeah, this is Brother Tory. Yo, changing the world, man. Yeah. Changing the world.
This is one of the greatest men on the planet right here, so y'all in good company.
This man sings wonderfully.
All that stuff, you know, that's
he's good at that.
Y'all in the right spot here. This is the Leimert Park, ground zero for black culture in America. Here it is.
Right? Run into him right in the middle.
All right.
All right, take care, bro.
All right.
Leimert Park, as I know it, is a quite unique place in the sense of its history. It was started around the same time that the 1932 Olympics. This was the first totally planned neighborhood village. They built it in with restrictive covenants. They didn't allow people of color to live here.
It was all white. There was no thought of anybody else being there. Once the racial housing and covenants came down in 1948, black people did start moving west, but it took a while to get to Leimert. By 1965, when the riots happened, white flight started and Leimert became much less white, much more black after that. Once it became primarily black, it became this artistic village. The Brockman Gallery started in the 60s. Alonzo and Dale Davis founded that gallery, I believe. The whole black arts movement kind of had a place to grow.
The need for opportunities for African American and other minority artists was the reason that we opened up Brockman Gallery. And we opened the gallery in 1967. I was 20, my brother was 24. We automatically knew it was going to be unique because we were there to promote minority artists. There was nothing like it in the community. And if you think about the social impact and political impacts of the time, we were ripe, you know, for this opportunity. The Brockman Gallery is the reason that Leimert Park is still on the map as a cultural hub. That's a lot to say, and it's a proud moment, you know, to be a part of this growing and continuing history of Leimert Park as a cultural hub. The Mark Bradford Foundation has changed the game because they have bought major pieces of property in the area. That's really critical to the success and the story and the life that the Leimert Park community is going to have.
This place is drenching in art, and all the different kinds of art. It's the major force of change for this neighborhood here. And I say that unflinchingly.
There was actually a movement to have a station put in Leimert Park. You know, the MTA was building that line. It was going to stop at Crenshaw and King, which is just past Leimert Park. It's just west of it. And so there was kind of an outcry, and people said, well, if you're going to have a train stop here, it's got to stop in Leimert Park. That's where they should come. The irony seems to be that many people in the village are nervous about what this means. I mean, they wanted the train stop there, but with it being more desirable, things get more expensive. And they're very worried about gentrification, which in a lot of ways just a kind of euphemism for white people coming in and changing the color of things. And Leimert is known for being a black kind of grassroots place, so what will it be if it's not that? It'll be something else. But I will say that it's been a long time coming. It's been 20-odd years. In some ways it took too long, and in other ways it seems to be coming too fast.
We're 9% of the population of Los Angeles, and we own 75% of this neighborhood. I don't think those are bad statistics. The only thing that we have to do is to fight to make sure that the history of our involvement and our engagement in this neighborhood stays that way, and people remember it so it won't get run over.
Make some noise! Hey guys, hey guys, hey guys. Check it out. So, everybody hold your hand out like this, right? And we're gonna bring our hands down really low, and then we're gonna start up at a real low tone, and then we're gonna raise up, and it's gonna be high when we're at the top. 1, 2, 3.
Me and this girl named Devin Montgomery, she used to take me to shows in like Echo Park and Silver Lake downtown, like DIY type shows. And I was coming from like hip hop background, battles and rap shows and stuff. She was like, it'd be cool if we brought our worlds together and we do a show at the same place you go to that rap thing at Project Blow. And I'm like, oh, tight. And we started doing Bananas. I was helping her promote it because I was really good at internet promoting. And then, yeah, I started growing it into what it is now.
All my mind is lost in 5 days and 5 pages saying that I'm the greatest, so the haters didn't need us. Why haters? My haters are on hiatus. I'm just
kind of sticking to the same ethos, like booking bands and booking rappers. Mostly it'd be rappers, but every now and then we throw in like other genres or people who do beats or people who sing and stuff like that.
Lena. Get ready for Leimert Park song, California.
I started coming to Bananas when it was a couple years rolling already. I'm just an avid supporter. I'm here every month without fail. It's like a place for fellowship and art where people can express their ideas. We can bounce ideas off of each other. We can collaborate with each other. I'm optimistic that Leimert will keep its essence because there's no other place like here. It's like a mecca for Black art and culture and music. We owe it to ourselves to keep its essence. I think that's what makes Leimert Park, the culture, the music, the people. That's what I think.
You heard now. Get ready. Get ready. Get ready.
So that's Leimert Park. And so out of that, we thought we should create a future idea of what Leimert Park could look like and us own it and make it tangible future, not a future that is not tangible. So first part of our dreaming, we dealt with that 2020 vision, and it looked like it should be more like 2022 vision, because that looks like when the metro is going to really come is next year. So again, that's made it where we are 2 years ahead of our planning, in a sense. We're able to do things right now. One of the things that the basic principles about Sankofa City, to me, to think of is history is now. So what I mean by that is part of our turmoil of this day is not coming to grips with, like even the statement that he made was that that it was protected by redlining and kept Black people out of the community. He used the word protected as a way to describe where it was. So those are the things that I think we should really drill down on, and that's part of the reason that I wanted to emancipate that image of what those, I love this documentary, but look where he starts is at the colonizing point of the culture here. He didn't start with the indigenous people, even though he said that that was one of the more important portions of what California is. It's in the milieu of these wonderful native peoples that were here before, but they got forgotten. So I think part of what I would like to do with this class is what we've been doing is to really relook at that whole way that things have been done. So I'm gonna go through this. We call our dream Sankofa City. Sankofa is this bird. It's a bird that's used for a lot of multiple meanings in West Africa. A lot of our design motifs that we started looking at was Los Angeles, Leimert Park specifically, is a Art Deco enriched community, and that is Egyptian revival. So all of the leanings of its evolution and its look was drawn from what was up north and not what was further south from Egypt. So what we thought we would do is start looking at what was south and see what influences Egypt, how it influenced how can it influence our visions for the future of Leimert Park by marrying those with a more southern leaning of the Art Deco. So part of what we did was that egg that the bird is holding is the future. The wings are made up of paintbrushes, as you could see, and the neck, a horn, and the tail, the drums. So that was a part of just, in order to go to the past, you have to really you have to understand the past in order to go to the future. So these are the various programs. I've ended up attacking everything in a real holistic way and not dividing it up. Again, that is a very good way to work in a fast way, but it's a very bad way to work for longitudinal planning. You need to know all the various aspects of what happens in a human environment because it isn't just one thing that happens, it's a multiplicity of things that happen together. This is the area that we're working with. I am, let's see if I can point to it. I'm right. Here is my studio. We're right next to this Vision Theater. They're spending $33 million on the end, and they spent $15 million on this first part. Mark Bradford owns the artists in our neighborhood own all this behind me, all of this, and all of this. And that's just the artists in the neighborhood. It's not regular entrepreneurs. So that whole area within it, we own about 50 to 60% of that neighborhood in its real estate, which is a very unusual thing. One, to have black men owning property, me and Mark, and artists too. And also we're able to kind of help the neighborhood plan out. So this is the gathering that you saw of bananas. They gather at my place every third Tuesday. I also have, I've been doing this for 3 generations, so I started my place, I worked with Eazy-E and Yo-Yo and those folks when I first started, and then my in-between time is this group called Project Bloat. I started with them now 27 years ago, and we're still family and friends running with each other, and then Bananas, I've been working with it for 14 years. So all of these, I track the community. And the way that I try to work in the community is longitudinally for the rest of their life. So they can always come back, no matter where they travel, whatever they're doing, we can then reset and help them take the next steps in life. Because some of my students, like the third person for South Park, Adrian Baird, he's one of my students, right? And so he would come to me at times and say, who can I talk to when we're talking about upper level engagement and me running a place like this? You know, how can we get people ready for that type of an engagement when maybe they're giving him 15 around the country? How does, you know, around the world, how do you develop that? Who do you talk to? How do you know how much money to ask for? How do you get drained or not drained for that because you don't know, you know, just plain and simply don't know. So those are the things that I try to do, is to track folks for the rest of their life. Is, you know, I meet them at 7 And then however long they can come back and work with us. And so this is something that I wrote up, is that our situation is that there's reconstruction going on, that the property owners, you know, one of the things our property owners deal with that isn't being said is that really the banks have frozen us out because they're not letting us use the banks as collateral, because when you're doing a property study, it's all done on the property that's been sold. And if no property has been sold, all of our property is frozen. And at about probably 2,000 in the sense of its value. And that's a game that they're playing with our neighborhood right now.
The Sankofa is
so this is one of the processes that we are using for the classes.
How will our future of augmented reality and self-driving cars change our cities? We're going to run community workshops and create videos in Leimert Park to find out. Leimert Park, located in South Los Angeles, is a neighborhood with a rich history of Black culture, arts, and music, with famous past residents like Ray Charles, Ella Fitzgerald, and former Mayor Tom Bradley.
The Leimert Phone Company is a collective between USC, the community, and Chaos Network. We started with our phone booth. We then put together the Beat Bench, and we created a People Street.
For the last 4 years, we've been running workshops to think about how urban technologies like payphones can help reinforce local identity. But now we're going one step further. Now we're going to create these videos to help spark public conversations to really think about what alternative futures of development look like, particularly when they're tied to local culture.
So far, we've reappropriated objects that people are familiar with, like payphones and benches. But the question is what people would do with new technology, like augmented reality or autonomous vehicles.
So this fall, we'll be working with local artists, musicians, and residents to imagine the future of the neighborhood. What will everyday life look like in South LA once you have augmented reality glasses or autonomous vehicles? These design videos will be a powerful blueprint of our dreams and desires. They will help guide discussions on the future of the neighborhood.
Hello, can I get a ride?
Okay,
Great, thank you.
location is confirmed. A shuttle will arrive shortly. Welcome to Los Angeles.
Pressure's on and it's hot. Tell you the story of Hannah, where you don't know what you don't got till you need it. Scrambling for that dough, boy. Everybody's alright, we all alright.
Welcome. Take the fast food history tour. Learn the history of the hamburger and the soap.
Welcome to Leimert Park. This is the Sankofa History Tour. To your right is the World Stage, founded by Billy Higgins and Kamal Daoud. And to your left, the Vision Theater.
Shuttle stop. I'll get out here.
Okay. Have a nice day.
Fresh fruit.
Hey, chill.
I thought it was free.
It is free, but you're taking way more than what you need. We share here, even with our ancestors.
What's that supposed to mean?
You just gotta shift your perspective. Here, look.
Is this some sort of game?
No, we're in touch with our roots.
I don't really have roots anymore. We ran out of water years ago.
You know what? You should come meet my dad. He'll make you feel right at home.
All right.
Alma, hey baby, you made it.
Hey, Dad. This is
Nina.
She's from out of town.
Hi, Nina. Welcome to Leimert Park.
Thank you.
You know, we're getting ready to start our drum circle. Would you like to join us?
I don't play the drums.
Don't worry about any little thing, Nina. It's gonna be fine. Drumming comes from your heart, you know? By the way, babe, it's almost that time. Where's your friends?
Oh, yeah. I'll call him now.
Okay, let's get started. Good. Billy in? Billy's spirit is here. You feel Billy? Billy Higgins. All right, all right.
Scrambling for that dough boy, but everybody's alright. We're all alright. I need to catch a break now. I gotta make a way somehow. Oh, I gotta figure it out. Alright, we need to catch a break now. Gotta make a way somehow. Oh, I gotta figure it out. Oh, help me, Lord.
So as you can see, it took a whole neighborhood for this to happen. We've been working for about, I would say, 30 plus years in this neighborhood to deal with this idea of gentrification. Because as that young lady was saying in that first piece, the third LA, that artists are the entree into an area, and then it becomes hip, and then people take over. So we thought that it would be interesting to turn that upside down. So how could we turn it upside down is by creating vehicles and ideas. So let me show you this piece. So you guys will be able to meet Recho, who's my co-partner in this, whose idea it is for these vehicles. I'm wanting to create the experience that these vehicles will help elicit. And so part of the class will be, one, the origami designs and different looks, utilizing laser, and then we're wanting to show that we could do micro building, micro industry, and small storefronts. So that's the real perspective of this. And that's what I've kind of been funded to do for our first and last mile for this neighborhood of Leimert Park as a prototype to go hopefully around the world as a way to drop it in. I work with multiple schools because each school has its own focus, and what my place affords the students is a crossover hybrid space to cross-fertilize your ideas with other students across the city, and who will be your eventual friends and hopefully future cohorts that you'll be working with all around the city or maybe around the world. So this is the basic principle of the class, is to do origami design. And I would like to really stretch out. I want the students to really look into nature features of things and then build out of that. Is to first make something very much like a flower or very much like a bird or hummingbird or faces, images. I don't know, that seems like it would really be pretty good way to work. So as a thinking process, we've been able to go to every culture and do this. So for instance, we were a part of Comic-Con, and we did this and took it to Culver City and helped them understand their community. So to me, I don't see this as just I see this methodology as something that could help the world because it's looking back at the indigenous cultures and the ways that we gather. And I think that that's really the fourth way. that wasn't mentioned to me is we're going to reconnect with the Sankofa concept, the ways to envision the future that uses emergent strategies of Octavia Butler and those types of thinkings, that looks at our world before colonization and what would that look like? How did the people in this continent and in the one continent that was of the group of people that were dragged here, what real good cultural information that could help us guide out of this precipice that looks like it's in front of us that we're not going to be able to answer. I think that the answers are going to come from really understanding our Mother Earth and our really interconnection with it, and the best people to get that from are the indigenous people. And I started looking at the Hopi here in the United States and at the Dogon in Africa. Both of those cultures still live on their homelands. And there's a lot that could be done with that. So guys, that's a little bit of my wrap. I hope this is helpful. Is there any questions? I'm going to show you one other thing, and then tomorrow we'll deal more in depth with the Sankofa City project and talk about all the various ways that we've been able to evolve and work on the ideas. But I'll show you one other place that we tackled, which was in Chicago. Is there sound?
It's 2050 in Chicago.
Southside has arisen. It rises.
Initiatives for the youth to have more entrepreneurial.
And we put a koi pond.
Plaza zones, as we call them.
using market tools, all of this is we're just trying to secure our investment, right?
How can we imagine the future of Englewood, the future of...
And then some said, oh, I felt like I was dancing for, people in the past.
To try to do a 6-month pop-up or a 1-year pop-up.
The year is 2037, and Chicago has seen great change.
I stumbled on this photograph. It kinda made me laugh.
Hi, welcome to the Smart Garden.
There's the chair of the future, one that transports people through time, shares the knowledge of the neighborhood, the history of the city, the magnitude of the world.
This is such a wonderful.
So that's different ways that I've been able to work out with communities, and then we have a real finished product. With these 5 days, what I would like to do with folks is tomorrow is to have that what if, how to imagine, and then we'll work out of that for the next 2 days. Any questions? Any ideas? Hello, hello. Nice and quiet. So do I have to drop a bomb?
I think we're going to have another question for you tomorrow, Ben.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, that gives you a basic idea of what we're up to. Tomorrow we will align with Retro, who's the young man that I've been working with, who really knows how to build cars. I'm more of a designer and inker and dreamer. And so, and I've been able to utilize my filming skills as a way to kind of garner help and elicit and work with all the different people similar to how I do in film, because film, you learn to very quickly that you can't do everything. And so, I've been running my business in this community in the same manner that I run films. All right.
Can we leave it?